community and being together. It's such a delight to kind of feel this room, and for friends online, want to invite you, even though you can't be here in embodied form, to rejoice in this connection and opportunity to be together. So welcome friends online, welcome everybody here. It's a very auspicious evening. Some of you know this is the Tibetan New Year, and of course Chinese New Year, and this time of beautiful opportunity for reflection and possibly removing obstacles. For those of you who are kind of interested and invested and engaged in this cosmology, this year is actually quite a powerful year ahead. It's the fire horse. Yeah. So if you thought last year was like a big deal, that was us like gathering our energy. and this year there's, a real opportunity to engage and maybe ignite new pathways, creativity, and hopefully Bodhicitta energy. So as we settle in, again, just welcome everyone to the Dharma Collective. If this is your first time, special welcome. If this is not your first time, special welcome. If you're a four-legged friend, extra special welcome. This is a community-run Dharma center, which is quite a unique place and space to have anywhere in the world. I think especially in a place like San Francisco, where many of our community spaces that are run by donation and generosity are harder and harder to find and survive. And it is a really special opportunity. Like, everybody is here because they really want to be, and everybody is here out of their own generosity of presence. So I really thank each of you for showing up. Not only are you showing up on this auspicious night, but this is like about as winter as we get. Like it's 47 degrees out. For us, that's like unheard of. It may as well be freezing. And it's raining, so again, just thank you for your effort and intention to be here in person. Friends online, I'm so happy you're cozy and out of the rain as well. And this evening, we're going to keep going through this book. I read all the way to the end this week. This is the second time we've done this book in some formation of this community, but I haven't read all the way to the end in a couple years. And it's, spoiler alert, so beautiful. And if you hadn't noticed, his not so secret message, this is Tsoknyi Rinpoche, the teacher who wrote this book. It's so clear that all of the teachings in this book are here to help us be more connected, more open-hearted, more compassionate to every being. And it is so needed in our world. And his advice is so simple and so clear. I will be honest, we are probably in the most, I don't want to say advanced, because I don't want anyone to be striving or thinking that they won't, oh, this is my first time meditating, I won't get it. But it's in some ways the most unique part of this book. And this is the part in which, for the last couple weeks, and will continue for another week or two, we're delving into this possibility of what's called non-dual awareness, or awareness of awareness. And for many of us, meditation feels supportive because we're focusing our attention on the breath and the body, and that allows us to settle in certain ways, super beneficial. And for others of us, we really enjoy the practices of compassion, loving kindness, empathetic joy, equanimity, that kind of real support of the heart, in which we use visualizations. And so there's a other flavor, right? Not just the focused attention, but imagining others. But these practices of awareness, it's like they weave in that focused attention, allowing the mind to settle. And they invite that same quality of kind of inquiry, like trying to understand with a whole heartfelt present the very nature of our experience, in order to rest in what Tsoknyi calls over and over these glimpses of the gaps. And so glimpses, meaning these momentary experiences as we meditate, of the gaps in between our thoughts, our sensations, all the sounds. And of course, makes perfect sense, like when we hear sound, that's where our attention goes. When a really nice, juicy thought arises, that's where our attention goes, let alone like a big emotion. So we're not as accustomed to paying attention to the kind of gaps in between thoughts, in between sensation and stimulus. And we certainly wouldn't imagine that it's in those gaps we could find a source or kind of intrinsic wellspring of ease, luminosity, presence, generosity, like all of the qualities we're often seeking through other means, that they're actually hanging out there in the gaps. And it's not that they're only in the gaps, it's just that's where we're first able to touch them or to find them. So it's almost, will you raise your hand if there's a seat next to you? There we go. Welcome, Louis. Okay. Thanks, Mace. So it's not as though, our awake nature, this luminous presence of awareness that we are seeking only exists in the gaps. It's really that, that luminous nature can so easily get covered over by thoughts, memories, images, sensations, stimulus, just the nature of our attention going here and there and everywhere. And one thing that's kind of interesting is our thoughts, they're invisible, mostly, right? Anyone else not have that experience without altering your mind with something? So our thoughts are invisible, but they actually are weighty. They carry this weight. And so we're going to do an initial grounding practice just to help us arrive here. And this grounding practice is going to kind of simply notice those glimpses between thoughts. And as Tsoknyi describes, the kind of weightless feeling that can arise when those glimpses are where we're resting our mind. So more of that weightless feeling that can arise when instead of just following the next thought, we're resting in those spaces between thoughts. Does that make more or less? We'll give it a try, right? Because talking about it is a little theoretical. So this will be a shorter practice, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we'll move into another practice and discussion. If it is your first time here, it can be really helpful to take in this space, right? And really have a sense of the beings. It's a full room, which can feel quite cozy and grounding, or kind of like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And if it feels comfortable, to kind of also look around and take in the space and other beings here. And we are super fortunate to have Mace this evening, who's at the door. And so even if there's sound and other things happening outside, just, allowing ourselves to rest a bit in this space. We are held in the greater body of a Sangha and community. And in this space, we are held in the greater body of these teachings. And in this space, we can invite ourselves to be held even in our own awareness at a deeper level, once we can rest in that greater presence of this community, the kind of lineage or the teachings, really not here all on our own, not doing it alone. So taking a moment to bring attention and awareness inward with the breath. It's so natural for us to deepen and lengthen the breath as we attend inward. So in a way that feels natural for you, extending that inhale and inviting a real sense of release on the exhale, even having the mouth open as you exhale if that's supportive. Just a couple more of these deeper, longer breaths. And then bringing our attention and awareness now just to the natural rhythm of the breath. Breathing in, simply feeling, sensing, and knowing we are breathing in. And breathing out, feeling, sensing, knowing we are breathing out. And gathering all the loose threads of attention, and the thoughts and sensations that are bringing us elsewhere. Imagine bringing them all together so that we could fully saturate our body with attention and awareness. And without having to imagine or force anything, really feeling the breath, knowing the breath, sensing the breath, as though, as it naturally does, the breath is breathing us. Consider the possibility that you actually can't do this wrong, and just keep coming back. Whatever arises, dullness, excitation, so many thoughts, almost falling asleep, whatever is there. Just come back, find this gentle, curious, this intimacy with the breath, so close, holding our attention and awareness right here. And softening through the face, and softening through the chest, and softening and grounding through the belly. taking a moment and considering that whatever arises is actually welcome. So not trying to push away or force or change thoughts, emotions, sensations, sounds. Still keeping our breath anchored, holding our attention and awareness. And also noticing, of course, different mental phenomena are arising, experiences through all the sense portals, sensation, sound, maybe even visual, possibly even taste from dinner or tea. It's all here. But instead of treating it as the center stage, finding those gaps in between whatever arises, to just rest in the space of being with the breath. For many of us, it's a habit when we relax and find ease, to space out and get distracted. So, with some precision and clarity, we keep coming back, noticing the breath, feeling the breath. And then we get carried away and come back again. And these gaps of our focused attention on the breath can feel like such deep refreshment, fully here, fully present. And then returning to that deepening of our breath as we close out this grounding. Once again, lengthening the inhale, and extending the exhale. Welcome back again. So this practice of learning to rest in the gaps or getting these glimpses there, this is a beautifully kind of laid out practice because it really falls on through the sequence of the first, second, third, and then fourth foundation of mindfulness. And if that's not familiar to you, no problem. The first foundation of mindfulness, really focusing on the body, right? And finding our ability, as we did in that practice, to kind of be with the body. And also, maybe as evidenced in that practice, the body is breathing, thankfully, without our intervention, just on its own. But when we bring conscious awareness and attention to the breath, it's like we light up this source of awareness that otherwise is just hidden to us. Like the body's just breathing, but when bringing attention awareness to it, all of a sudden the body feels more alive. Our attention awareness feel more alive. And with, the classic teachings on these foundations, you could practice until enlightenment with mindfulness of breath in the body. Like this is not a beginner practice. And in fact, I think it's really not a beginner practice. Most of us actually find it really hard to keep focused attention on the breath. Anybody notice that? Anybody sustain attention on the breath the whole time? I mean, it's amazing, right? It is very hard. And yet, again, I tried to mention this in the practice. A lot of what is gained in the practice is in the returning over and over. So it's not as though the goal of the practice is to have no thoughts. The thoughts will still come. And interesting, in the weave of this book, Tsoknyi Rinpoche invites us to recognize that so many of our thoughts are really in the way of our well-being and in the way of our ability to be present for others. But since we're not aware that we're even having them and they're running the show, we have to start at this most simple way of just noticing they're there. So in our mindfulness of breath in the body, we're just noticing whatever is arising, but coming back to the breath. And then in our second foundation, we have this very beautiful opportunity, the mindfulness of feelings, often called, the quality of Vedana. That's the Sanskrit term. And this is our ability to notice, it's actually our ability to notice the habit of the mind, to when something arises, attribute it to being good, bad, or neutral. So it's one thing to focus our attention and awareness on the breath and the body and be like, no, okay, not paying attention to this, not paying attention to that. And then we're kind of almost opening the aperture of, wow, immediately when something arises, I'm like, don't like it, do like it, don't really care, moving on. And so we kind of learn more and more about this mind. We learn more and more, in some ways, how to slow down and recognize what's happening in the mind by just noticing that the feelings are coming and going and that we attribute pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Now that in and of itself, you could, again, spend your entire lifetime with that practice, and it would likely lead to awakening if you really deepened it. Because part of what we really dig into when noticing that these feelings are arising and we're, determining them as good, bad, or otherwise, is we actually start to see that the feelings are just feelings, right? So I am healing a bit of a shoulder injury, and so if I'm sitting for a while with my arm in a certain way, there is tightness, there is sharpness, and instead of experiencing it as tightness and sharpness, I immediately am like, bad. And then very close after, don't like that, when is it going to end, wish it wasn't there. Like, we see how we start to build upon something that's a sensory experience, and we make it like this whole thing. And then where am I? I'm not even meditating anymore. So the purpose of the Vedana isn't to get really good at recognizing the sensation and the way that we label it. It's to get good at noticing this habit of mind, to create this huge story out of a simple sensation. And that's awesome. I mean, the human mind is so incredible that we can make stories, make meaning, make understanding from all of our sensory inputs. However, if we do want to find this peace of mind and a calmness and a spaciousness, we have to kind of start seeing the obstacles. And one of the obstacles is these like huge kind of thought formations that build up. So then we have, building upon that, this third foundation. And, this is sometimes just described as mindfulness of the mind. And in this, we did a little bit of this in that practice as well. We notice the contents of mind. We can label that, thoughts arising, and really not just the sensations, but the thought formations arising and moving through. And then this fourth foundation of mindfulness, sometimes called mindfulness of dharmas, mindfulness of phenomena. This is when we start to glimpse the gaps. This is when we start to really pay attention to not the sensations, not the body, not the breath, not the thoughts, but the actual spaciousness of awareness. And this requires, I won't say a leap of faith, but it requires us to be curious enough to investigate, is there something more than these sensations, than these thoughts, than what I experience in a momentary? Is there something more, bigger, right? And the most common analogy used for this is being able to recognize the sky, not just the clouds. And so, here in the city, especially historically more so, we lived under permanent cloud, right? The fog, and that gave us this kind of overwhelming sense of just, we are living in the fog. The equivalent might be just feeling a sense of our thoughts all around us, no ability to see the space between them, no sense that there's anything more than our thoughts or sensations just as they arise. And then not in between maybe May or August, we would maybe only experience that like overlay of fog, but then there's like the glimpse, right? The kind of opening to the sky and the sense of such vastness or bigger than that low-hanging experience. And for anyone here, when you do get that glimpse, it does have that quality of, last week I described how Tsoknyi says that kind of bigger view, that spacious awareness view is like stepping out from being within a building to being outside and seeing everything around you. So it's that quality, that fourth foundation of mindfulness. And we're going to do a practice with this that he describes. There's two practices that he describes in this chapter back to back. One is very using the doorway of somatic energy. And then the other is really using inquiry, or kind of curiosity, looking towards. So the somatic one is quite simple, and we'll do that in a moment. And the idea is to kind of, almost like right after you sneeze, you can have this glimpse of spacious awareness, right? And we're going to create an opportunity to kind of rest in that openness. But the other way in that he describes is really using each of these foundations of mindfulness to then rest or open into that sense of spacious awareness. And the way it's taught is what are called the three immovabilities. And this idea that we're kind of like establishing ourselves like in the body, like immovability of the body. So grounding our presence and awareness with the stability of the body just as it is. And we kind of bring all of our attention and awareness there. And then we move into the immovability of sensation, though the feelings, and instead of feeling that they are kind of solid and unmoving, the immovability of feelings actually in somewhat of a contradictory way describes how we know that the feelings come and go. So in that case, the immovability is just our awareness, and then the feelings as they come and go. And then the third immovability is just this ability to allow thoughts, memories, and images to arise while maintaining that kind of established, solid sense in the body. And the fourth step then is really this kind of sense of leaning back into openness. And it might, again, be for just a glimpse. Like here we are, we've kind of established ourselves in the body. We're allowing feelings to move through, whether the feelings are physical sensations or even the residue of emotions in the subtle body moving through. We're allowing thoughts to move through. And then there are the gaps. There are the glimpses there through the gaps. He says, allow yourself to become aware and alert to the momentary gaps between sensations, feelings, and thoughts. Turn your attention to the space between these clouds of experience. In so doing, you may catch a glimpse of the fact that there's no separation, no distinction between the experience and what is being experienced. So that's a bit of a heady one, but I'm going to say it one more time. Allow yourself to become aware and alert to the momentary gaps between the sensations, feelings, and thoughts. Turn your attention to the space between these clouds of experience, and in so doing, you may catch a glimpse of the fact that there's no separation, no distinction between the experiences and what is being experienced. Rest in that glimpse. It might not last for long, maybe a few seconds, before the habit of separation arises again. So the real move here in moving to this non-separate or non-dual awareness is instead of observing the body and observing the feelings and observing the thoughts, we just are. And I know that sounds simple, but it's this, and it actually is. That's why I didn't want to say this is an advanced practice. It's actually very nakedly simple. And yet, the habit of that separation, he describes, is so strong that it's hard. Because if immediately a thought arises and we experience it as just some vibration and frequency of energy and light, it's just moving. It's not us thinking. So it's a very interesting experiment to run. Like, can we have a feeling of spacious awareness and just be? Really, that's it. So let me show you the physical method. Then we'll try the immovabilities. We'll have a little chat about what we find. So the method that Tsoknyi teaches, he learned from Adu Rinpoche. It's very simple. And some of you, if you've sat with Tibetan teachers, you've probably done this before. You just have your hands about here, and you have have inhaled, and as you exhale, just like that. So we're going to do that 3 times, but I want to practice one more time, because the point is in that, and you rest in the glimpse of that. Because right after it's like you're not doing anything, you're not being anything, you're not thinking anything. You've just completed an experience, and you kind of rest in that. So we'll try it one more time together. So did anybody feel that? Just a glimpse, just a moment? Okay. So I gave us so many words, concepts, and ideas. Is it clear enough that we can practice it and then talk? If not, please ask a question. I don't want you to sit wondering for the next 20 minutes. Is it clear enough to explore for now? Yes. Yeah, and I will in the practice. So it's immovability of body, sensations, thoughts. Yes. Nerds always welcome for the Dharma, for kind of anything. Otherwise, clear enough? Okay, so we're going to start 3 times doing the what he just calls the dropping method, and we'll move into practice from there. So inhaling our arms up. And rest. Inhaling our arms up and drop. And one last time together, inhaling arms up and drop. Nothing to do, nothing to be, nothing to know. And very likely the mind has wandered, no problem. Maybe there was a glimpse and an opportunity to rest in that glimpse. And so now bringing attention and awareness to the body and breath with this invitation to find the immovability of body, just feeling the solidity and stability of this body settled into its natural state. Within the immovability of body, there's so much fullness, subtle sensations and presence of vitality in the body. Can we allow and invite this immovability of sensation by simply allowing any and all qualities of sensations to arise and move through, but not carrying us away? This noticing of sensations arising and falling, shifting and changing, can actually help us be more right here, present within the body. Body is always in the present moment. And thoughts, mental formations, images, they are arising as well. And practicing an immovability is to allow them also to come and go, to move through without leaving a trace. We have this simple opportunity then to notice the gaps between the experience of being in the body, the sensations that arise and shift and change, and the mental formations that arise, thoughts, memories, images. And maybe it's just the smallest little gap. And for the moment, really noticing those gaps as they arise, as a glimpse of what lies beneath all these clouds, as a glimpse towards that nature of mind. So much of these thoughts are habits, reruns, same material over and over, same worries, excitations. What if we consider the possibility that we don't have to join? That right now, everything is already okay. And in this moment, we could simply rest in the mind. So thoughts arise and we rest. Images arise, relax more deeply. Sensations come, keep relaxing. It can feel quite subtle what we experience in these gaps, these glimpses. Maybe just a sense of lightness, maybe a warmth. If it's just dull, it's unlikely we're actually getting a glimpse. We might just be falling into some feeling of sleepiness. There's often a luminous and bright quality, almost as though we discover a wellspring of energy and vitality. If you start to feel a little too spaced out or drowsy, you can take a moment and focus on the inhale, brightening the mind and the body. If it just feels like there's so many thoughts, you're getting pulled here and there and everywhere, take a moment to relax and release, calming through the exhale. Otherwise, just keep noticing the gaps that arise. Keep resting right there. Maybe gently, we have this sense of leaning back more fully, resting in that spacious awareness that we are glimpsing so beautifully. Dropping any separation between what is experienced within awareness. Thinking arises, sensations arise, sounds arise. Can we experience these without being the thinker, the observer, just resting, relaxing in the being? Soften the face, the chest, the belly. Invite the vibrant vividness, uprightness of the spine. Soften and open, keep returning. And whether there are glimpses and gaps or longer expanses, recognizing the quality of warmth also within the spaciousness of our awareness, the intrinsically loving nature of awareness, not a vast open space that is away from the heart, from bodhicitta, but the vast open space in which bodhicitta naturally emerges, shines, radiates. While the body and breath, sensations and thoughts are held in time, is it possible to consider that the spacious awareness is timeless, boundless, without beginning, without end? Very gently regathering attention to the body and the breath, reconnecting to this moment, to this room, to this gathered community. Thank you for your practice. Didn't really want to end that practice, but because of my boundless compassion, I knew that wasn't true for everyone. And it's meaningful to bring our direct experience into discussion and reflection of this practice. And here at the Dharma Collective, one of the main goals and aspirations of this place is to co-create community with these shared values of compassion and connection. And so as we gather weekly, we get to embody that through our body, our speech, and our mind. So when we ask questions, really engaging thoughtfully with what might our words mean or how might they land for those in the room. When we're listening to what others are saying, imagining them as the yet to be awakened Buddhas that we all are. So this real generous spirit, this kind spirit with one another. And, this invitation and opportunity to really recognize how little we actually know about another's experience, and to have that kind of freshness as we listen and pay attention. This is, as you all know, this is a drop-in class, so every level of question is welcome, right? There's not like, oh, only people who do this. No, please. And very often, the questions that are coming from the freshness of practice are very relevant for everyone. And it's really through the questions, in my humble opinion, and then I think pretty well demonstrated in educational literature, it's through questions and reflections that you really learn, right, how to apply, not just the concepts and ideas. So it's a meaningful part here. So with that preamble, curious, are there questions, reflections, comments on the practice? Yes, Ron.
I guess a reflection, comments, maybe a question will come out of this. Yeah, it was beautiful. I'm right in sync with you in the book I was reading earlier today and practicing a little. I had a couple glimpses, one that could have been a minute or so long. Yeah. And what it was like is as I was letting feelings pass and thoughts, I feel a lot of things somatically, and things keep arising. And at one point, it was hard, like letting them pass. I noticed that I was looking for where's the next one? And I'm like, this is temporary. What's the next one going to be? and that happened for a little while. Chatter all night and all the practices in my mind has started to be about the practice, right? Which I don't know if that's a step up or if it's just more chatter. It just seems like more chatter to me. But at some point, I stopped. There was no more following. Right? There was no more noticing of the passing through. There was just noticing of how it was. It's just this. The sensation is just the sensation, and I'm here, and that's the whole thing, is just the sensation. It's just the thought, just the feeling, just the sensation, and very calm, peaceful, bright. And I think this is the first, meditation in a long time where I heard every word that you said. That I never caught myself. I end up here a lot where I'm like, I wish I had a rewind because I missed all of that.
Yeah.
Right? I was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was here, and that momentary, and I think it could have gone on for 30 seconds or 2 minutes, whatever it was. There was just a movement from one sensation to another that was just not separate from me thinking or observing it. It was just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. And I think it wasn't exactly a question. However, chatter or the way that we are kind of monitoring or tracking our meditation, it really can be quite helpful, and it's almost like this little internal coach, like, hey, come back to the breath. Hey, where are you? Oh, you're tight. It really can be quite useful, actually. When I'm meditating on my own, I am giving myself guidance. I'm not just floating in spacious awareness until I float in spacious awareness, and then there's no guidance needed.
Yeah.
So it's very skillful means to kind of have the instructions and little guidance within us. That's a little different than chatter of like, oh no, you started thinking again, or whatever. But it is also, there might be an in-between there. So.
Yeah, I'm just, the thoughts that I'm noticing are about their instructions,
Yeah, great.
right?
Yeah.
And just one thing that I noticed, so this practice and what I learned on retreat in the Sayadaw U Tejaniya practice was, bringing it all, how you said bringing it all in, bringing it all together, like just that the thoughts are part of it, that part of it, just the lack of striving, just the noticing of that, the welcoming.
Yeah.
Is I think what makes this possible for me to get to that place.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm happy to bring you a microphone after I speak. You're next, right? You wanted to say something? Okay. So I found your instruction very curious because I quite frequently in my practices can get to the point where I have settled the bubbling cauldron of the mind, and I have these empty, spacious sensations. And I'm even sometimes, I like to ask myself a question, what is aware, or turning back in to focus on that awareness.
Yeah.
But I felt a little tripped up in your instruction about somehow it being like that idea of that like light or brightness or seeing outside of the room. I'm like, am I doing this wrong? And then like, I appreciate your bit here just now about that you are giving yourself instruction. Often I'm hearing the voices of past teachers and some of my favorite of their phrases.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if I'm missing something other than just existing for moments in true, I don't even know what I would call it, but just like nothingness or observation.
Yeah.
But it's
So
like a room, an
words,
empty room.
words are so tricky.
An empty room?
Yeah.
Maybe an empty space?
Yeah. And I think it's, it's more like, what does it feel like for you, as opposed to what is it, is there a quality of feeling or mind?
Well, you saying dullness and brightness was interesting to me because tonight I do happen to be very sleepy.
Reasonable.
And sometimes these moments of an empty room are bright and sometimes they're not. Yeah, so I was just
Yeah.
wondering,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I kept being like, am I gonna get to peek above this at some point, or is there outside of this room? Because I didn't like have that experience somehow.
I don't know if I don't know the outside. I'm not sure if that's not what I meant, if that's what I said. And the bright isn't bright as in light. It's just that sometimes when we get really spacious, we get really dull. And that's not in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So I'm from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. We call it clear light awareness. Not because there's a light, but because the quality is vivid, wakeful. Right? These are just other words. And then, it's also timeless and boundless. So I don't know if that might have made you think it was outside of the room. It just meant that it doesn't need to be located in linear time, which is a construct, because it's by its definition free of construct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that I've heard other people say dullness before, and so
Yeah.
I keep asking myself, am I being dull?
Well, dullness, there's a couple qualities. It's a great question. There's a couple qualities with dullness. Yeah, it's like many of us already ate dinner. It's been a long day. Like we're tired, and there's like a dullness that can creep into practice. I did mention though, interestingly, when we touch the clear light, it can feel, even if we're exhausted at a physical form body, there can be vividness and brightness. So that's kind of it potentially is there. And then there's a dullness that even if you're sitting retreat, like sleeping all night, everyone's, doing your dishes and making your food, like there's no reason, you still are dull. And that's more often considered kind of like a habit or an obscuration or a hindrance of practice. That's our habit of, since I'm not needing to do anything or go anywhere, I'm just going to turn off.
Like a disassociation.
It can be. You could be totally like soporific in the body and dull. So you could still be in the body, not dissociated, but just not bright, not clear. And again, I know it's always hard with the synonyms. And I do think it's tricky, especially when you're in different traditions. The Theravadan tradition, which is so much more dominant in North America, doesn't have such a similar way of describing clear light awareness and less inclination towards truly non-dual awareness. So that sometimes if that's been a background practice, then this framing can feel a little bit funny, which is also no problem, just try it out and see. And if it brings good questions, it's good. Yeah, and what's your name?
I'm Lydia Dearheart.
Lydia.
Lydia.
Nice to meet you, Lydia.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks. Yeah, other question, AJ, then Jason.
Thank you for the practice. I always love doing these practices. I had a hard time with the second practice with noticing the phrase gaps was just like hard for me. And yeah, I was kind of like struggling against that a little bit. And the main kind of like entry point that I use with awareness practice is tapping into space and then getting to it. And sometimes it is like space as like the more general quality, and then other times it's kind of like space around thoughts or around sensation.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's the same gap in space. It's I was able to like use that synonym and kind of like flip it. And when I like reframe it in that way, it's a lot easier for me to also hold whatever sensory experience it is, whether like of the mind or the body or whatnot, and also that awareness, that the awareness and the sensation that it's holding too. And I think with gap, it was like there's the sensation and then there's the thing in between.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so space was easier
Yeah.
for me in
Yeah.
this way. So I just wanted to.
It's so interesting, like, yeah, like the words matter so much. And even if, we've been doing these practices and we're like, wait, no, wait, was I doing it? Wait, where? You know? And it's interesting because I do think it's so helpful when we have a visual analogy in a way. And, there's that famous Buddha sculpture that many Dharma teachers talk about, which I think it was in Thailand. It might have been in Myanmar and Burma, but at one of the changeovers in the kingdoms when, because there were Buddhist kingdoms and then non-Buddhist kingdoms, and whenever the Buddhists were on their way out, they would go through and kind of pillage and take through all the gold and, get rid of all the sculptures in the monasteries. And so at one of these times, they completely encased a solid gold Buddha sculpture in mud, right? And put it all in mud. And they made it an approximate Buddha, and it was like revered because it was like old, but everyone's like, it's kind of ugly, but it's beautiful. And then they were like cleaning it and trying to restore it. It was maybe 10 years ago. And it was like this thing that shone through. And they were like, what? Did we break it? And, slowly start to like unpack and realize that what was shining through was the true nature, right? Was this gold Buddha that had been protected by all these layers of mud. And, not that all our thoughts are mud, but this like self-protective layer that we put on to kind of not, just be, which makes sense because we have to do and da 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 da. But, I kind of can think of the glimpse or the gap as like we're getting a little bit of purchase into that, like we get to see. And then the other analogy I like, Whew, Rigpa, right? Just one moment. For friends at home, we had Okra, the dog, had a little moment here. There's also this, if you watch a train go by and it's lit from the sun from behind and it's going by really fast, so it almost looks like it's one blur of just one car, but then there's like these glimpses of light in between. So it's like whatever we can feel like, and then my own experience with, the thoughts and like the gaps or the glimpses, it is really interesting how at first it feels like something that's wedged in there, and then it starts to feel like, you're not looking just through the keyhole, like you're actually in the room. But whatever is the way in, I'm curious. We are actually next week. The way that he goes into the same practice again is space around emotions, space around thoughts. Like it's like just a different doorway into the same room. But I'm curious, like what works about that? Like what feels, like easier about bringing the space around instead of the gaps in between, if there's a way to describe it.
I think for me, it brings me to that like awareness that is aware of all things and not just the more kind of narrow sensation or thought.
Yeah.
And I think partly because I've done kind of like other practices and entries into this that are like noticing the sensation and then the part that is aware of the sensation too. So I think space helps me with that, especially with sensation and with thought as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a sense of more kind of like, I feel more like diffuse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of like opening the aperture
Yeah.
a bit. And so there's less of that separation of this, like the seer and the thing that's being seen, and it's all kind of one.
And I think, for many people, once we have that glimpse of that more diffused or kind of less solid, kind of focused entry, then that's where we're going to go back to over and over. Like that's, it's like a joke among Dzogchen practitioners, non-duals, like Once you go Dzogchen, it's like you're kind of just always there. Like every practice, you're like, well, here I am again, like spacious awareness. And it kind of becomes like the momentum. And I think that's also very trustworthy. So,
Yeah. And sometimes it gets kind of more dull and sleepy, and towards the end of the practice it did, and I kind of was able to kind of leave that and just do more of the breath awareness, and that was able to kind of like get more focus.
Great.
And sometimes it's kind of going back and forth.
Yeah. And do you guys notice how the church bells were really helping us? It's like bell, gap, bell, gap. I was
I was
like,
thinking of Ulysses counting the bells the other week.
there was a lot of them. Wait, there was more than usual? Sorry?
It's Ash Wednesday. Yeah, that's right. They were doing some.
God. It's a really special day. God, I feel very embarrassed that I didn't know that. What is Ash Wednesday? Anybody?
It's the beginning of when, like, Mardi Gras is this Mardi Gras.
Okay, it's Mardi Gras.
You can no longer eat meat on Fridays.
But what happened historically on? Okay,
It's coming to Easter.
and the beginning
time.
of Ramadan. Yes, we did mention that. Okay. Okay, great, good. Some of us paid attention in some of our religious studies. Great, okay. Happy Mardi Gras, just kidding. Gage, sorry.
I accidentally ended up with the microphone, but
Oh.
I will. I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
In this practice, one comment, I really like the immovability. It tripped me up at first, but then I got into the earth actually helped. And I felt like the mountain, and I was
Yeah.
like, and then I could also really just let things pass. And
Yeah, great.
so that was a different, I usually use space a lot too as my go-to, but the earth really helped. And so
Yeah.
that was a surprise. And also I have noticed when doing the clear light practice and the vividness, and I'm on my subtle body kick this year.
Yep.
The brightness does stay here.
Okay.
Is there,
You don't feel it in the whole body?
no, is that possible?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Undulating waves of energy throughout the whole body.
So that's where I meant to keep it short.
No, no.
We'll stop there.
No.
But how do you, if there is a way to
Mm-hmm.
bring the vividness and the clarity and the awareness
Yeah,
down,
yeah. I think you're doing it.
like you do it anyway through.
No, I mean, I think you're already doing it. You know, you're like, it makes sense it's starting here again, because the lung, or that upward wind energy, it makes sense that you might have more sensitivity, right? First in the head centers, and then my guess is it will just drop and open without you, with the continued subtle body practices. And, you know, I think it'll be really sweet to kind of notice when, you know, my guess is, you know, doing the subtle body practices on a regular basis, likely there's even more access already to the heart and already to the belly. And so to just notice when those are there, you know,
Okay.
right? And just be like, oh, okay. And then they will absolutely kind of, I shouldn't give you any guarantees. I have a very strong hunch that they will start to that will start to open, and that will start to feel like this kind of, like cascading, undulating. And it's not always, it's interesting in my experience, and also what I've read is, there's like it can be almost intolerable in its pleasure and also like sweetness, but poignancy sometimes when the full subtle body opens, until we can establish and feel more like kind of grounded in it. Like it's a lot of energy that's opening. So you have a lot to look forward to. It's coming. Yeah.
I think so. I think.
This is about the practice itself that we started with, which was
Yes.
awesome, the Tibetan drop.
Yeah.
Because I felt like when I did that 3 times, it completely set me, after that, I was in the glimpse, I was glimpsing, and I just started smiling. It was
Great.
like I was there.
Yes.
It was like, wow, it was like sun-rising feeling.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all, I was completely present. But the quick question is, in that practice, when you drop and you hold, should you be breathing or should you hold your breath?
Good. Well, it's an interesting question because, again, a lot of Dzogchen folks, like they'll even have their mouth open after, kind of like just this whatever. Definitely breathe at some point, but you can.
We're holding enough, and I was like, I'm holding, this feels good, until it was like, okay, now I gotta breathe.
Yeah.
Now breathe.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, because there is that practice of holding breath.
Yeah, that's a little different. Like that is almost, that's like in some ways like, it's probably not the right word, but like tonifying the subtle body so that there's, what Cage is describing is this full openness of the central channel that then allows all the, channels to be open and the tigle are moving with, through all the sa. So it's like there's a way that those breath holding, it's like it's opening, but this dropping, yeah, I can't describe it exactly, but it wouldn't be a hold. It's so much more like relax as opposed to hold, Yeah. Let's get you really quick, can we? Yeah.
Okay, so quick. So I'm at the level of just trying to be able to focus on breath some
Yeah.
of the time
Yeah.
with the monkey mind and all that. And I felt like this was a pretty good session. But as you guys mentioned, the bells, like I love counting the bells. So when I was, it's very satisfying when it gets to, 8. So when they started, I was going like, okay, 1, 2, no. I need to not count the bells. See, I'll really do a good breath if I'm not counting the bells. So then I tried not to count the bells, but they was kind of like 6. And then I went like, I'm going to wrestle away the bells. So I started to breathe more intensely, like this breath is going to happen. And then I knew I wasn't doing the practice.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just sort of funny. But then when I was doing, sometimes I felt like I was thinking about concentrating on the breath pretty successfully, and other times I was, some little moments, concentrating on the breath without thinking
Okay.
about it.
Yes.
And so that's why it felt kind of successful.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I was doing that, or at least trying to concentrate on the breath, I sort of would get this like wallpaper behind it. It's like, and I don't know what that is. I tend to visualize stuff a lot. I visual stuff.
Yeah.
Like if I have an MRI, I'm visualizing a herd of horses grazing, and suddenly when the noise comes on, they run away. So anyway. Is
And
it
when you
okay to
mean
have-
wallpaper, what is it?
Well, it's
Just
not,
curious.
it's not a picture
Yeah.
of flowers. It's just like this backdrop sort of is behind where I'm concentrating on the breath.
Yeah, great.
Maybe visualizing the breath a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you that there's a satisfaction you can feel with, instead of imagining the breath or feeling like really just like the breath breathing and you being with that. Like that is beautiful. And then, the visual content, there's a whole variety of visual content that people experience. And as long as it's not distracting, it's great. It's neither confirming or disconfirming of, a good practice. It just is. And as you said, it's not everyone, but many people have visual content, sometimes more distracting, like lights or colors or, other figures coming through. So it's not that unusual. And some people like it so much they want to make it the focus of their practice, which I understand. I would just choose. So just you don't feel pulled like you did with the bells. Like be like, I'm going to focus on whatever arises in the visual field and make that the practice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. We're kind of at time. Sorry. Yeah, I know. I love to be respectful of everyone's time, and I want to hear everyone's questions because it's very rich. Time flies when you're having fun and or experiencing glimpses or gaps of spacious awareness. So let's just take a moment, bring our attention and awareness back to the breath and the body. And this is our exquisitely meaningful moment where we get to really feel the goodness and the potential of what it means to come here together in practice. And to remember the very purpose of this practice and its potential. Of course, to help polish our heart and find clarity of mind, but in service of the possibility that this could be of benefit. And so, if it feels comfortable, placing hands together at the heart, the symbolic gesture of offering our practice, all its goodness, all its energy. Imagine offering it with this heartfelt intention or aspiration, considering the volumes of difficulty and distress in this world at this time. Imagining our practice like a radiant light could make its way out over this entire world, and that this practice could benefit all beings feeling love and belonging, all beings feeling safe and protected from inner and outer harms. Dedicating our practice that all beings everywhere could be absolutely free.